Welcome in the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for finding us on your favorite podcast app or on Dash Radio. We've moved on the Nothing But Net channel to 7 p.m. Eastern every day. So download the Dash Radio app for free. Search for Nothing But Net. We're there every day at 7 p.m. I'm also on OnsideRadio.com every day at 10 a.m. That's more than just the Heat, the Dolphins, and all South Florida sports. Also, check out 5reasonsports.com. Spell it out for no paywall content on the Heat and all of the other South Florida teams. Also, check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, including our friend Mark over at U-Break Wheel Fix. U-Break Wheel Fix is a wheel repair and refinishing company located in North Miami with 15 years of experience. You can fix bent or cracked wheels damaged on the streets of South Florida, fast turnaround times on most repairs, and they even offer loaner wheels while fixing or refinishing your wheels so you can keep your car on the road without interruption. If your wheels are faded or peeling, U-Break Wheel Fix offers complete refinishing back to factory standard, or you're just bored with the look of your wheels. They offer over 5,000 different finishes to customize the look of those wheels, so don't spend money on new wheels when you can just renew them at U-Break Wheel Fix. They offer a full line of custom wheels and tires for every vehicle application, in-house repair, and complete vehicle customization. So call U-Break Wheel Fix at 305-748-0112, 305-748-0112, or online at ubreakwheelfix.com. Also, check them out on social media. I would recommend Instagram, where they put up all the latest designs. It's a really cool place to go. So go to @ubreakwheel, WHEEL, Fix. And here's the other thing. Mention 5 Reasons Sports, 15% off anything you do with them. Repairs, refinishes, anything. Mention 5 Reasons Sports. And now, today's episode.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5
on the floor.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily show on the Miami Heat and the NBA featuring Ethan Skolnick with Alphonse Sidney, Alex Toledo, and Greg Sylvander. Part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. Again, we've got the full crew. I've got Alf, I've got Alex, I've got Greg. We're going to get right to it. Today's floor plan. The Heat have added 2 players who have been rotation players, been starters. In the case of Avery Bradley, been a starter for a long time in the NBA. They've lost a couple of players, one of whom, Jae Crowder, started in the playoffs for the Heat. Derrick Jones Jr. was not a starter, although he started some occasional games over the course of his Heat career. Those were the primary moves that the Heat made. We know that Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo are going to be starters. I asked Goran Dragic on the call, the Zoom call he had, if he cared about whether he started, came off the bench, and he basically said it didn't matter to him, whatever coach wants him to do. So let's go through it. In your view, I'll start with you, Greg. Who should be the 3 starters with Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler this season?
So I actually consider 3 guys penciled in, or you could say you could write it with ink, and that is Jimmy, Bam, and Duncan Robinson. I don't see any, combination that doesn't include Duncan Robinson, just from the sheer perspective of how he shoots. And then this is where this gets tricky, right? Because after those 3, there's so many different ways you can go. My gut feeling says in a perfect world, they would like to have Tyler Herro in the starting lineup. So that would be Tyler Herro, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy, and Bam. And then there's a part of me that thinks they may go back to what worked in the regular season with Meyers Leonard, just takes a little bit of the wear and tear off of Bam Adebayo. But truthfully, this is where this team gets fun, because I feel like Mo Harkless is going to be the Jae Crowder replacement ultimately. So you could slide him in next to Bam in a starting lineup. I feel like Avery Bradley, from a point of attack perspective, is an interesting option in the backcourt too. So I keep going through these exercises, and Kendrick Nunn, I forget about him, that he could be an option as well. But ultimately, if I had to go one way or the other now, I'm going Herro, Duncan, Jimmy, Bam, and Meyers.
Alex, is Duncan a given in your view?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think about while Leif was talking there. And I want to say yes. I want to say I'm 90% sure he's a given. He was such a huge part of their success last year, especially in the regular season. So, yeah, I guess I'm going to put him in there, but I'm not 100% sure. So I guess I'm going to have Jimmy, Bam, and Duncan there. And then from there, like Leif said, it gets interesting. I think where I've kind of landed on it is if you do decide to go Meyers, which I think is a very understandable move for all the reasons Leif said, another thing that worked out well for them last season, then they should start Avery Bradley. I think because you put Meyers in there, you're going to go back to that drop defense. And the thing about their drop defense that was such a problem with last year, like we talked about, was the point of attack. And now I think Avery Bradley is like the perfect solution for that. At least, he's not a perfect player. He doesn't really bring anything else other than that and some okay three-point shooting. He's not going to give you any type of handling or finishing, but that's what they need. And so, especially if you're going to run that drop, then I think Bradley is a must. If let's say you want to start Mo Harkless as a Crowder replacement, or even Andre Iguodala, because I think he's actually kind of just as qualified to be a 4 because he's stronger. I think maybe he's not stronger, but I think of Andre Iguodala as stronger than Mo Harkless. I don't think that's going to happen. But if you start a switchy 4, then I think you could start Herro or Nunn, whoever they want to pick, because I think Nunn is more suited to be a starter if you want to optimize him for trade value. But on the developmental path, like I said, if you're going to go with Herro, then I think start Harkless. If you're going to go Meyers Leonard, start Bradley. I think that's kind of what makes the most sense.
Alf, can we eliminate the idea of Goran Dragic being a starter in the regular season?
Because of the injury, I think so, right? Like I don't see them wanting him to play more than 20 minutes, 25 minutes a game. I think if you're running him over 25 minutes a game in the early part of the regular season, something went terribly wrong, right? Like you want him to get, I know he said he's fully healthy, but everyone says that, right? So I agree with these guys. Like I put it on Twitter. I think Meyers Leonard goes back in the starting lineup just because of what Greg said. Like, I hate calling him Greg, what Leif said. Going into the playoffs, like it gave you a really, really healthy Bam Adebayo. And I think that's going to be even more important this year. And then I do like the Avery Bradley starting because it gives you kind of what we wanted with Drew Holiday. In a much, he's not Drew Holiday, but he solves that point of attack stuff that just drove the Heat nuts last year and almost made Meyers unplayable. And not all because it wasn't all Meyers' fault, but he's a slow-footed big man, and you have guards like just running rampant towards the rim, and he can't do anything about it. So I do to me, it would be Bradley, Duncan, Butler, Bam, Meyers. Like that's what I would like to see. And honestly, if you don't think Duncan Robinson is a starter next year, you're smoking rocks. Like he's starting. Like there's 3 guys that are starting next year, and it's Duncan, Butler, and Bam. Like that's it.
Can I challenge you on a 4th? I don't think it makes any sense to bring Tyler Herro off the bench next year. I as I said on Twitter, I would put pretty good money on the fact that Tyler is going to start, and I think it goes beyond just the lineup mechanics. I think it goes to 2 things. One, them continuing to try to push his confidence up and to give him another carrot to kind of push to, which is to be a starter. He's already kind of had his second season already. He wasn't a rookie in the bubble. He was playing crunch time minutes in the finals. Not all well, okay, once he got out of the Eastern Conference Finals. But I think the other thing is this. If you're looking at him either as a long-term sort of part of a big 3 for you, or as the core piece that you're going to flip to get the 3rd piece of the big 3, if you can't get in a free agency, you got to showcase him as a starter. I think he's a starter. I think Goran comes off the bench. And I think the other reason that I would say that he's a starter is, to me, if you're going to bring Dragic off the bench and Goran's not going to be 100%, I mean, again, I asked him about the injury. He says he's got to take an MRI. He'll see how it responds. But let's be serious here. I mean, he's not going to be right for the first month or 2 of the season. I don't think so. Pairing him with Avery Bradley makes sense. It protects Dragic a little bit off the bench. And I think having Herro in as a starter with Jimmy, who he's comfortable with, gives you enough spacing with Meyers, with Herro, with Robinson. And really all you've done is replace Kendrick Nunn with Tyler Herro. And I think you're going to get a better ball handler there, player with higher upside, and who's, I think maybe he won't be more consistent, but again, he'll have more flashes even than Nunn does. That's the lineup to me. I mean, Alex, can you see a scenario where
Well, no, Ethan, I want to ask you a question. Do you think that happens game 1 or the second half of the season? Because I agree with you. I think second half of the season that happens, but I don't agree. I don't think it happens game 1 of December 22nd, whatever it is. I just doubt that they give Tyler the reins that quickly.
don't you think his body's going to respond? Well, here's the thing. Avery Bradley didn't play in the bubble. So actually, Avery Bradley's been resting for a little while. So maybe you don't have the same issue you would with him with some of the other guys. But I think Tyler's going to respond in a way that they're going to have to put him on the court from game one.
That you're going right towards where I was heading. I mean, this obviously transcends the X's and O's of one season when you're getting Tyler Herro in the spotlight. But you hope that he comes back and he's so good that you can't have him coming off the bench, that he is that much better of a player. He's kind of on that trajectory, the way that he's been ascending, month over month. So you would expect him to come back and be that kind of player if he's a little bit stronger, a little bit more polished. He's got poise. I just feel like from a talent perspective, you want to have him front and center, but also he may just be so good that you can't deny him a spot in the starting lineup.
I think the other thing we need to get into, and we'll do this after the break, is how the bench rotation looks, depending on what the starting lineups. Because for Spoelstra, that means as much as the starters do. Sometimes we've actually seen that it means more. All right, but first, you got to check out PrizePicks.com, because by now, your fantasy team is screwed, okay? Everybody's hurt. Whatever you were doing for a full year, it's not working anymore. We're seeing guys go out. They're not coming back. And you may be out of the race already. So you got to check out Daily Fantasy. This is the Daily Fantasy that you want to do. It's just you versus the numbers. It's a perfect place for you, whether the injury bug has ruined your season-long team or you're a seasoned veteran in the daily fantasy space. All you're doing is they're giving you a fantasy number for players on various teams, and you're just going over or under. And then you're pairing them together just like you would in a parlay in a bet if you were betting teams. It's a lot of fun. You can win a lot of money. They give you a chance to win 10 times your money for getting 4 predictions correct. Entries are so simple, they can be made in less than 60 seconds. So sign up today at prizepicks.com or on the PrizePicks app and use the code 5, that's F-I-V-E, to get 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. That came in handy because I missed the first couple, but I got the money back. PrizePicks truly is daily fantasy simplified, so check it out. Go to prizepicks.com, just play around with it, and you'll see how many different combinations that you can come up with. Pick players on different teams, pair them together. It makes those dull Thursday night football games a lot more interesting, and then you can get used to it for when the NBA and the NHL and MLB come back. So go to prizepicks.com and use the code 5, F-I-V-E. All right, let's get to it, because when we talk about the starting lineups, it's not just about that. It's how things play out with the bench. So let me give you mine, okay? If you're starting Leonard, Herro, and Robinson with your 2 stars, then that means your bench looks something like this. Dragic and Bradley in the backcourt with none kind of as your 5th guard. It's interesting to see how that plays out. And then up front, you'd have Iguodala, Olynyk, and Harkless as your prime. Am I missing somebody, Greg? Is there somebody that's not going to
Precious?
And well, let's wait. And KZ, right? Who could crack the rotation at some point. And we have seen that in the past. We've seen Riley bring in, quality veteran kind of role players, and then the young player passes them naturally. And that may happen with KZ versus Harkless, something kind of that situation. But that's how I see that bench. And to me, that bench gives you a little bit of everything. You've got Dragic for scoring with Olynyk, some ball handling with Olynyk. Harkless gives you a versatile defender, along with Iguodala, a little bit like what you had with Iguodala and Crowder. And then obviously Avery Bradley, adds to that defensively. How does that rotation look to you, Alex?
I feel all right about it. I think they have, I don't feel one way or the other of what's the right way that they should set the rotation. I trust them and however they evaluate it. Again, I think it has a lot to do with what defense they want to commit to early on. I think all signs point to Meyers being the starter, and maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe Spo just surprises us like he always does. But if Meyers is a starter, I prefer Bradley. And I think that's kind of the most balanced 2 lineups, because if you have Bradley and Meyers starting, then you have Goran Herro off the bench with Harkless and Iguodala as your wings and Olynyk as your 5. And I think that's a really nice, balanced rotation there. And I think maybe I think Precious is actually going to factor in a little bit more than KZ, just because if you don't start Meyers, we have seen that Spo has not been willing to play Meyers and Kelly together. I don't remember them playing at all last season together. And so if that remains the case, then who better to fill that role if he does decide to just say, well, if Meyers isn't starting, he's going to be out of the rotation, then Precious. I think he is going to be extremely switchable, and you can play him next to Kelly. Or if by the way, it could be Kelly playing himself out of the rotation. You don't know. Regardless, I think you can play him next to any of their bigs. And I think that's kind of going to be interesting. But I do think at the end of the day, it's going to be Meyers. It's going to be Meyers starting, whether it's Herro or Nunn or Bradley in the backcourt. It's going to be him, and then it's going to make it a lot easier to balance out the rotation that way.
Greg, these conversations make it seem more and more likely that Kendrick and Kelly are gone, right? Like that's.
I mean, that would definitely provide balance. But this is the thing, like with Goran uncertain to start, I don't think Iguodala is a regular season 9-man rotation guy all year. Like, I don't think that that's necessarily realistic. You want this kind of depth, and there's going to be guys that play for pockets of the regular season, and then you don't hear from them for a month. And this is the other thing, and I think you guys are onto something with Spoelstra trusting young players. Last year, we started the season and we had no damn idea that Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson were about to catapult themselves into the starting lineup. And that was going to have to be a tough conversation with Goran Dragic, who was making, $18 million, former All-Star, and Kendrick Nunn starting out of nowhere. So a guy like Precious, like if he shows,
No, you're calling KZ Okpala at the 4 is what you're doing right now.
It could be that, but I feel like that's something that it's an underrated aspect of this that maybe when we looked at the Jae Crowder replacement, and it could be also Mo Harkless, but these young guys, maybe they're further along or they've seen things that maybe we just haven't.
And also, and I've talked about this with Ethan before on other podcasts, the COVID situation is not something that we should take lightly. Depth, like the teams that don't have depth this year, like you're playing with fire, right? Because all you need is a little COVID outbreak in that locker room, and 4 or 5 guys could be out, and you're the Milwaukee Bucks, and you're talking about Bryn Forbes and all these other idiots that you guys brought up earlier that I could care less about. Like you're like, oh, they
Wilson.
Bench. Yeah, you brought up the Orlando Magic bench and whatever. So like real depth is something that's important. Like that's I think we're underrating the COVID aspect of of this next season. I really think that we're going to see teams rolling out 8-man rosters on game night. Like it's just going to happen. Like 4 or 5 guys are going to get COVID, and what are you going to do?
Gabe Vincent season.
Kyle Alexander and what's the other guy that?
No, Kyle Alexander is gone, Alf. He's gone.
What's the guy that started the Miami Heat reporter Twitter beef today?
Oh, God, who was the guy they picked up? I can't ever remember. Greg, who's the prospect they picked up?
The foreign guy.
So I'm going to butcher this name too, but I believe it's Paul Ebola, and he's an athletic 6'8" forward.
Did you say Ebola? It is not Ebola. His last name is not
EBOUA.
Butchered it.
Ebola. I don't know, but he's a 6'8". He is chiseled. He committed to kind of come in and fight for a 2-way contract in training camp. A 6'8" forward, super athletic from Cameroon. So we'll see.
Well, he better be worth it because he started one of the biggest Twitter beefs in Heat beat reporter in history. My God,
we're not going there. I'm just.
Can we do a whole segment on that?
No, we can't. We can't.
Okay.
If you want to do that on the YouTube channel, that's up to you.
I would do it on Light Skin Opinion.
You can do it on LSO. I'm not
see if I can get Ira on.
We're not doing. I just want to see if the guy beats out swine flu in the front court. That's all. So I don't think that. I don't think that
I'm rooting for H1N1.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. SARS.
You think I get Ira to come on LSO to clap back? Like just like an Ira Ether segment, just like 15 minutes of Ira just going ham.
All right. We're changing the subject here. All right. You know what? I'm gonna. You know what? This is a good time for a Manscaped ad. We'll get back to our episode here in a second. Before we do, I want to tell you about another of the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Knicks are no good in the NBA. You're familiar with that? The Knicks are no good? Well, Knicks are no good when you're shaving certain parts of your body either. So that's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created. I never thought I would actually say that on a podcast. And just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. Their 3rd-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin-safe technology pioneered by Manscaped. When I tell you this is premium, I mean premium. The battery will last up to 90 minutes, so you can take a longer shave. The waterproof technology allows you to groom in the shower. One of the coolest features is the LED light, which illuminates grooming areas for a closer and more precise trimming. And let's not forget about the charging stand. Show your mower off loud and proud, because this intelligently designed stand is a convenient charging dock powered by USB. If you're listening to me speak right now, I want you to experience it firsthand for yourself. Make sure you trim yourself. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code 5RSN at manscaped.com. And now this is where I end my career. Your balls will thank you. And now back to the episode.
Okay, if you don't
All right. Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the floor. We're gonna go totally.
I was gonna do my Manscaped ad with Tony Brothers.
No. We already have it. That's it. I just did
you want to do your man?
I just did it.
The nice one. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
nice
my bad.
The nice one. All right, so let's come to a close here before this gets any worse. You mentioned the idea of COVID, and he's going to have to play more players, and clearly they're going to be dealing with travel this year. There's going to be a lot of things that are different than they were in the bubble, where at least they had that, they knew they were playing every other day, as Riley talked about. It was very easy to kind of figure out how you wanted to use your players than it is when they're going to be playing maybe 3 games in 4 nights, right, and traveling all over the place. It's just going to be a weird environment. So to that end, I do think he's going to play more players, but I also think now we have to get accustomed to the fact that whatever the regular season lineup is, it's not going to be the playoff lineup. So let's fast forward a little bit then, okay? Do you see a scenario where Tyler Herro is a starter during the regular season, and then again Goran Dragic, in this case it was none this past year, but Goran Dragic becomes a starter in the playoffs, or have we seen the last of playoff Goran as a starter?
I think we have. I think that, maybe in a game 7 or in like a game 6 on the road that you have to get for elimination purposes, you insert him because, Spoelstra's done some of that in the past. But Dragic just coming off this injury, I feel like it's actually almost like it sets the stage to keep him off of the bench. And you just hope that you're maybe not faced with scenarios that force you to put him in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I agree. I think the days of Goran Dragic as a playoff starter are over, just because at some point you have to pass the torch, right? Like you have to pass the torch to a guy like Tyler. And that it's really Tyler. I don't even see none on this team by the time the playoffs come around. And if they do, you just got to start trusting your younger guys. You just have to start moving forward. You move the needle forward. Goran is a really, really good bench scorer. I think that's what he's going to be for the rest of his career, as long as his career goes on. But if Tyler Herro is a part of the plan moving forward, Tyler, I don't think Tyler's going to start game 1 of the regular season, but I do think second half of the season, by the time we get to the playoffs, Tyler is going to be the starter at point guard. And I think there's going to be a positionless thing going on. I think there's going to be a lot of ball handling by Jimmy and by Bam, but I think Tyler's going to be the starter at the 1. And if you do that, you can't go backwards at that point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Is there any scenario where Kendrick Nunn starts the season as a starter, Alex?
Yeah, I don't think that's completely out of the question. Like I said earlier, I think
in this economy.
Yeah, I don't know, man. If you're trying to, it really does seem like they're trying to trade him, and if he's on the roster day 1, that's the best way to get his trade value up, because he looked very, very good as a starter, man. He got 2nd place in Rookie of the Year, and even if Zion was playing, it would have been 3rd place. That's pretty significant. He had a great regular season. I think he fits in really well. I think it's an option. They have a lot of options they can go to, which is a good thing, and I don't really think it's going to cause any problems who they pick or who they don't pick to start. But I tend to lean with Alf. I think once you get towards the end of the regular season, you're going to see Herro, and maybe at the start of the playoffs, you're going to see Herro starting. And I think the only way that isn't the case, I think right now we all see it as, Goran's going to be the 6th man, because he's kind of on his way down because of the injuries, even with the phenomenal playoff run he had. And Herro's on his way up because of the leap that he took. I think the only way that Goran starts again, which I think is very unlikely, is if that flips, right? Is if Goran is just kind of look very good. He looks exactly the same, and Herro is struggling as a starter, or even struggling off the bench, right? If he hits some type of sophomore slump where he doesn't look like he can be that secondary ball handler, I don't really think that's going to happen. But I think that's the only thing keeping him from, taking that path that I think we all want him and expect him to be in as the starter for the long term.
Greg, you were shaking your head. You don't think there's any scenario, even if he's on the roster?
No, I mean, I'm already struggling to figure out how to get Avery Bradley in the starting lineup. Obviously, the Tyler Herro thing, Goran Dragic. I feel like there's just a pecking order there. The division with some of what Atlanta's done, they like loaded up with a bunch of guards. It feels like it's a guard-heavy division, so you need a lot of options. But I don't see Kendrick Nunn as a starter. But I do think if he ends up on the roster day one of the regular season, that they have incentive to find a way to get him on the damn court, because otherwise you're never going to be able to increase his value as an asset.
Leif, you don't want Kendrick Nunn guarding Trae Young?
Kind of no, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's not ideal.
All right, so let's close here with our best guesses, because I think I don't know if we've changed any minds here. I'm telling you, Leonard. This is my view on the most likely. And again, it's thinking of what the bench might look like. I think it's Leonard and Bam again to protect Bam during the regular season. I have another rebounder with him, and I do believe Meyers will be better than he was in the bubble. I think what he talked about on the Zoom call about not being able to get his ankle right. He was not the same player. I mean, the player he was in the regular season was
hurt. He looked so slow.
He was
slower than usual.
Yeah, like Kelly. It was like Kelly in the first half of the regular season. It was not the player that we were used to. Meyers was hurt in the playoffs.
Yeah, he was a serviceable starting center during the regular season. So I think to me, it's Leonard, it's Bam, it's Jimmy, it's Duncan, and it's Herro. I think that's where it starts. And then I think it's, again, Dragic, Bradley, Harkless, Iguodala, Olynyk would be your first five off the bench, most likely, at least if Kelly is here. Greg, is that where you are, or are you somewhere else?
We are 100% aligned at this moment, but obviously this could all change with a Woj bomb as we're potting right now.
Right, exactly. By the time that this posts, Alf,
when Kelly Olynyk and Kendrick Nunn get traded for Bradley Beal, like we're gonna have to rethink our entire approach to this.
Right, but for right now, where are you?
For right
at?
now, yeah. No, actually, I'm Bradley. I think it's Bradley and Meyers starting.
With Duncan, Bam, and Jimmy. And Alex?
Yeah. I think I'm still there. I think I'm not against what you guys are talking about. Obviously, it wouldn't be great for the defense, but I don't really think like whether you start Bradley or Herro is going to make a huge difference either way on your regular season. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think if they do start Herro, I think it would be better for them to just go switchy and go with Mo Harkless there or Iguodala. But obviously the Iguodala thing is going to be, I don't think that's realistic at all. And I still think Bradley just makes too much sense, especially with Meyers not being really a better option there to put somebody next to Bam. With Meyers being there, it just makes too much sense for Bradley to be there for the point of attack defense on the drop. So I'm going to go with that. Bradley and Meyers with Jimmy, Bam, and Duncan.
And with that being said, Spoelstra will start Nunn and Harkless. Right?
I don't hate that either. I don't hate that.
Listen, because of this podcast, we are so headed for KZ at the 4. Like that's exactly.
Or Mo Harkless. They said he took less money for the role, so maybe it's Mo Harkless.
Yeah, it could be any of them. I don't think a lot of people again would have called Kendrick Nunn as a starter when the season started. All right, check out our sponsors: YouBreakWheelFix.com. Mention 5 reasons for 15% off. PrizePicks.com. Use the code 5 and you get your deposit doubled. And Manscaped.com. 20% off if you use the code 5RSN and you don't mention Alf. We'll be back soon.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.